What's up, guys? Your agent Tyler Wayrung here, and today I was planning to film a live call with one of my private investors to share the exact questions that I get all the time from private investors so you guys could see how I answer them, how we actually operate our private money. I wanted to record this, but my audio got all jacked up. So instead, what I did was I went back and listened to it, documented the questions that I was asked, and it also benefits you because we cut out a lot of BS catching up in just conversation with an old friend of mine as we were working through some of these questions. So in this video, I'm going to just walk through all those questions, answer them as if I was answering them about how I use private money in my real estate investing business. If you're new here, I'm an off-market, full-time real estate operator. I have nothing to sell you, except I just want to share the things that I wish I had when I first started out in this business. I did write a book about HELOCs, but I'm not going to push that on you. It's on Amazon if you're looking for it. But let's jump into this video talking about how we structure private notes. So when this investor reached out to me, and in fact, when most investors are reaching out, they kind of categorize their questions in three major buckets. So the first is going to be, what's the return, right? They want to know upfront. That's the hot and sexy part that most people want to hear about. Then they're more focused on what is the risk associated. And then it usually thirdly gets into what are the logistics? How does all of these moving pieces work? So that's how I'll kind of structure these today and jump right in with the investor talking about what kind of returns can I expect if I invest my hard-earned money with you. And so for us, we structure our private money notes at 11%. And you'll hear a lot of people talk about points. We don't do any points. We just do a one-time $1,250 processing fee. We're in the Midwest. It actually, on average equates to about a little more than a point, but a lot of investors get confused about points and they start trying to do math in their head and it never usually works out well. So we just say it's 11% interest only that you get paid every single month that we have your funds. And then at the back end, when we sell this property, you get a $1,250 fee on top of getting your lump sum cash payment back. Another piece of that return is we also guarantee 4 months of interest payments. A lot of investors are really concerned about, I'm going to give you all this money, you're going to flip it and sell it next month. I get one interest payment and wasted a ton of my time. So just to alleviate that risk, if we do find a good deal like that, we're willing to go ahead and pay that full 4 months worth of interest only payments so that it is a win-win scenario, because at the end of the day, I don't need money for one deal. I need money for multiple deals. I'm looking to build long-term relationships with these private investors. So we go ahead and do that, and it usually makes people feel a lot more comfortable going in. And we can also guarantee the minimum return that you're going to get. So a lot of people like to hear, okay, if I invest this much, what's the minimum amount I can make? And obviously, if the deal goes on beyond that 4-month mark, you're going to get that minimum amount plus month 5, month 6, etc. Although we like to turn projects pretty quick, and 4 months is our average anyway. So that's kind of our target. However, the more times that we're able to churn your money throughout the year, right? If we can do 4 deals throughout the year and you get one every 4 months, you also get 4 times that fee. So it's a win-win. All in all, he was, pretty excited about that. He's not looking to get rich, and this is never a get rich quick scheme. It's more of, hey, if you want to take a little more risk and beat what you're going to get in your savings account, this is probably a good bet for you. He was also mentioned that he's not a fan of the stock market, so he's looking to get beat, what he can get in his savings account without taking on the stock market risk. The only question he did have here is, if you sell at month 2, do I continue to get 2 extra months of interest-only payments? And the answer to that is no. We go ahead and just bulk those up all into one so that when the deal closes, our agreement closes, you get all of your return back at once, and we kind of cut ties until it's time to do that next deal if they decide to do so. All right, so moving on from the return section, this is usually the quickest and easiest conversation to get through. It's like the car salesman showing you all the features of the car before you get into more of the nitty-gritty. So we move on to the risk section. My buddy actually cracked me up here. He said, so what happens if you decide cocaine's a hell of a drug and you want to take all my money and go party your tail off? All right. To answer that, I kind of broke it down in a couple different ways. So one, I explained, you will never send me directly money. All the money in all of our private investment exchanges happens between a private investor and a title company. So he would wire his funds to a title company who then uses those funds to close on the transaction, and vice versa when we actually sell the property. I don't get the money and then I send him a check. No, it comes directly from title, and he's actually required to get his funds before we're allowed to transfer the property. Typically, I'll follow that up with continuing down the risk train and kind of proactively answering what I think I would be thinking if I were in their shoes, and start answering the questions around security and risk and how do they make sure that they get their money back. So then he kind of moved on. And he said, okay, that makes sense, but what happens if something happens to you? Right? How can I be sure that I'm still tied to this property? You know, I trust you. I have a good relationship with you. But if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, then what happens to my investment? And so then I explained that anytime that we're taking on private money, that private investor gets a first position lien against the subject property that we're buying. So we're buying 123 Main Street. This investor gives us $80,000. He then, at closing, we record a private note giving him an $80,000 lien against that property. A lien, you don't really need to understand all the details with the lien, but the one thing you need to know is that we cannot sell that property until that lien is satisfied. And for a lien to be satisfied, the lien holder, being that private investor, he has to sign off saying, I will release that lien as long as I get that amount of money back, sent back to me from the title company, right? So that's a little security blanket. If something happens to me, that lien is recorded with the county recorder's office. So even if, you know, my partner or somebody else took over the property, fixed it up, and tried to sell it, they would not be able to sell it without him signing off saying that that property can be sold. So a lien is a very powerful tool, and it's something that, you know, if you're out investing or you're going to be taking on private capital, highly recommend that you incorporate this strategy. And this is another reason why we only let one investor to one property, so we're able to give them that first position lien, which is why if you have a mortgage on your house, your lender is going to be in first position against it to make sure they get paid in that worst case scenario. And speaking of a mortgage on your property, or most people are familiar with putting a mortgage on a property that they live in, we try to structure this as close to that as possible because most people, one, understand it, and two, the banks have done their homework already. They know what kind of measures they need to have in place to assure that they're going to get paid back or give them the highest probability to do that. So another thing that lenders often make you have when you do have a mortgage on a property is insurance. So one of his next questions was, okay, I understand what happens to you. What happens if the house catches on fire? So we do put insurance on all of our properties, and we do name the private investor as an additional insured on that policy. So all that's really kind of fancy insurance speak for if that house is to burn down, the insurance policy will then cover that loss. All right, so lastly, once they're comfortable with the returns, they feel good about their risk and the mitigation strategies that we put in place to make sure they will get their money back. Lastly, it really turns into logistics and more of this, how do the details work. So we talked a little bit about the logistics on the front end of how do they give me the money. That money goes straight from their account. It's a wire transfer to a title company. That's how the money gets into the deal. Then on a monthly basis, they do always ask, how do I get those monthly payments? We use QuickBooks Online so that we don't have access to their private info, but we still have the ability to deposit that on a monthly basis right into their account. So we try to make it as simple as possible. We don't want them looking for payments here and there. It goes right into their account. And then QuickBooks also tracks all of that from a tax perspective so that we both get the right tax documents at the end of the year. And then at the end of the deal, we brought this lender on for $80,000. We sell this property for $200,000, right? We have to satisfy that $80,000 lien before we're able to transfer the property to this end buyer. But I hope that's helpful for all you guys out there, either raising private money or thinking about how you might structure it in your business. This is exactly how we lay it out, the exact conversations that we have on a weekly basis. And we've had nothing but phenomenal reviews back from our private investors. And we don't have one that has started and has not wanted to continue and do multiple deals with us. So again, yeah, there may be a better way. If you do know something or you do something a little different, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. With that, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap for today. I'm Tyler Wayrung, and we'll catch you next time.